The Lord of the Rings. Book 1. Chapter 7. In the House of Tom Bombadil. The four hobbits stepped over the wide stone threshold, and stood still, blinking. They were in a protracted low room, LED with the light of lamps swinging from the beams of the roof, and at the desk of dark polished timber stood many candles, tall and yellow, burning brightly. In a chair, on the aways facet of the room dealing with the outer door, sat a female. Her long yellow hair rippled down her shoulders, her robe became green, inexperienced as young reeds, shot with silver like beads of dew, and her belt was of gold, formed like a sequence of ag lilies set with the light blue eyes of forget-me-nots. About her foot in huge vessels of green and brown earthenware, white water lilies were odoring, so that she regarded to be enthroned within the midst of a pool. Input, precise guests, she stated, and as she spoke they knew that it turned into her clean voice that they had heard making a song. They came a few timid steps in addition into the room, and started out to bow low, feeling strangely surprised and awkward, like people that, knocking at a cottage door to beg for a drink of water, have been answered by using a honest younger elf queen, clad in residing hours. But earlier than they might say something, she sprang lightly up and over the lily bowls, and ran giggling in the direction of them, and as she ran her robe rustled softly like the wind within the o'ering borders of a river. "Come, expensive folk," she said, taking Frodo with the aid of the hand. "Laugh and be merry, I'm Goldberry, daughter of the river." Then gently she exceeded them and ultimate the door she became her back to it, with her white palms spread out across it. "Allow us to close out the night," she said. "For you're still afraid, perhaps, of mist and tree shadows and deep water, and untamed matters. Fear not anything. For tonight you are underneath the roof of Tom Bombadil." The hobbits looked at her in surprise, and she or he checked out every of them and smiled. "Truthful woman Goldberry," stated Frodo at final, feeling his heart moved with a pleasure that he did now not recognize. He stood as he had at times stood, enchanted by honest elven voices. However, the spell that turned into now laid upon him turned into unique, much less eager and lofty, changed into the pleasure, however deeper and nearer to mortal heart, marvelous and yet no longer odd. "Fair Lady Goldberry," he said once more. "Now the joy that became hidden in the songs we heard is made undeniable to me, slender as a willow wand. Oh, clearer than clear water, read through the residing pool. Fair river daughter, springtime and summer season time, and spring again after. Wind at the waterfall, and the leaves' laughter." Abruptly he stopped and stammered, overcome with wonder to pay attention, himself announcing such matters. But Goldberry laughed. "Welcome," she stated. "I had not heard that people of the Shire had been so candy-tongued, but I see that you are an elf, buddy. The mild in your eyes and the ring in your voice tells it this is a merry assembly. Sit down now, and anticipate the grasp of the house. He will not be lengthy, he's tending your worn-out beasts." The hobbits sat down gladly in low rush-seated chairs, at the same time as Goldberry busied herself about the desk, and their eyes observed her, for the narrow grace of her movement led them with quiet pleasure. From somewhere in the back of the residence got here the sound of singing. Every so often they stuck, amongst many a derry dole and a merry dole, and a hoop-a-ding-dillo, the repeated phrases. "Antique Tom Bombadil is a merry fellow, bright blue his jacket is, and his boots are yellow." "Truthful female," said Frodo again after a while. "Tell me, if my asking does not appear foolish, who's Tom Bombadil? He is, stated Goldberry, staying her swift actions and smiling. Frodo checked out her questioningly. He is, as you have got visible him, she said in solution to his appearance. He is the grasp of timber, water, and hill. Then all this strange land belongs to him? No, certainly. She replied, and her smile diminished. That might indeed be a burden, she added in a low voice, as though to herself. The timber and the grasses and all matters developing or residing within the land belong every to themselves. Tom Bombadil is the master. No person has ever caught antique Tom taking walks in the forest, wading within the water, leaping at the hilltops below mild and shadow. He has no fear. Tom Bombadil is grasp. A door opened and in got here Tom Bombadil. He had now no hat, and his thick brown hair changed into topped with autumn leaves. He laughed, and going to Goldberry, took her hand. Right here's my quite female, he said, bowing to the hobbits. Right here's my Goldberry clothed all in silver green with ours in her girdle. Is the table laden? I see yellow cream and honeycomb, and white bread, and butter, milk, cheese, and green herbs and ripe berries gathered. Is that sufficient for us? Is the supper geared up? It's far, said Goldberry, however the visitors possibly are not. Tom clapped his hands and cried, Tom, Tom, your visitors are tired, and you had near forgotten. Come now, my merry pals, and Tom will refresh you. You shall easy dirty hands, and wash your weary faces, take away your muddy cloaks and comb out your tangles. He opened the door, and that they accompanied him down a quick passage, and round a sharp turn. They got here to a low room with a sloping roof, a penthouse, it regarded, built directly to the north end of the house. Its walls have been of clean stone, however they have been generally blanketed with green pudding mats and yellow curtains. The o'er changed into edged, and strewn with clean green rushes. There were 4 deep mattresses, every piled with white blankets, laid on the o'er alongside one side. In opposition to the contrary wall was a protracted bench laden with huge earthenware basins, and beside it stood brown ewers led with water, some cold, a few steaming warm. There have been smooth inexperienced slippers set prepared beside every bed. Earlier than lengthy, washed and refreshed, the hobbits were seated at the desk, on each side, even as at either stop sat Goldberry and the master. It become a long and merry meal. Although the hobbits ate, as simplest famished hobbits can consume, there was no lack. The drink of their ingesting bowls appeared to be clear bloodless water, yet it went to their hearts like wine and let loose their voices. The guests became all at once conscious that they had been singing merrily, as if it changed into easier and greater natural than talking. At last Tom and Goldberry rose and cleared the table hastily. They guests had been commanded to take a seat quiet, and have been set in chairs, each with a footstool to his worn-out toes. There has been a in the huge fire earlier than them, and it became burning with a candy scent, as though it have been constructed of apple wood. Whilst the entirety was set so as, all the lighting in the room were put out, besides one lamp and a couple of candles at each cease of the chimney shelf. Then Goldberry came and stood earlier than them, protecting a candle, and she needed them each an amazing night time and deep sleep. Have peace now, she said, till the morning. Heed no nightly noises. For not anything passes door and window right here, keep moonlight and starlight and the wind off the hill pinnacle. Right night. She exceeded. Out of the room with a glimmer and a rustle. The sound of her footsteps was like a circulation falling gently away downhill over cool stones in the quiet of night time. Tom sat on some time beside them in silence, whilst every of them tried to muster the courage to invite one of the many questions he had meant to ask at supper. Sleep accumulated on their eyelids. At ultimate Frodo spoke. Did you listen me calling, Master, or became it simply chance that delivered you at that moment? Tom stirred like a man shaken out of a nice dream. What said he? Did I listen you calling? Nay, I did not pay attention, I used to be busy making a song, simply chance introduced me then, if danger you call it. It was no plan of mine, even though I used to be looking forward to you. We heard news of you, and discovered which you have been wandering, we guessed you'd come. Ere lengthy all the way down to the water, all paths lead that manner, right down to Withywindle. Old grey willow guy, he's a strong singer, and it's tough for little folk to break out his foxy mazes. However, Tom had an errand there, that he dared no longer prevent. Tom nodded as if sleep became taking him again, but he went on in a tender making a song voice. I had an errand there, gathering water lilies, inexperienced leaves, and lilies white to please my quite woman, the closing ere the 12 months' end to keep them from the iciness, to owe her by her pretty toes until the snows are melted. Each year at summer's cease I go to empty them for her, in a extensive pool, deep and clear, some distance down Withywindle, there they open rst in spring and there they linger state of the art. Through that pool lengthy in the past I discovered the river daughter, fair younger Goldberry sitting within the rushes. Candy became her singing then, and her coronary heart became beating. He opened his eyes and looked at them with the unexpected glint of blue. And that proved properly for you, for now I shall no longer cross down deep once more alongside the forest water, now not whilst the year is old. Nor shall I be passing old Guy Willow's house this side of springtime, not till the merry spring, whilst the river daughter dances down the withy course to wash within the water. He fell silent once more, but Frodo could not assist asking one greater query, the only he most favoured to have replied. Inform us, Master, he said, about the willow guy. What's he? I've never heard of him earlier then. No, don't, stated Merry and Pippin together, sitting suddenly upright. Now, not now, no longer until the morning. This is proper, said the antique guy. Now's the time for resting. Some things are sick to hear while the arena's in shadow. Sleep till the morning light, relaxation on the pillow. Heed no nightly noise. Fear no grey willow. And with that he took down the lamp and blew it out, and grasping a candle in either hand he led them out of the room. Their mattresses and pillows had been tender as down, and the blankets were of white wool. They'd hardly laid themselves at the deep beds and drawn the light covers over them before they have been asleep. Inside the useless night time, Frodo lay in a dream without mild. Then he noticed the young moon rising, under its thin light there loomed before him a black wall of rock, pierced via a dark arch like a outstanding gate. It regarded to Frodo that he turned into lifted up, and passing over he saw that the rock wall changed into a circle of hills, and that within it was a plain, and inside the midst of the plain stood a pinnacle of stone, like a sizable tower. However, no longer made by means of hands. On its top stood the gur of a man. They Moon because it rose appeared to hold for a second above his head and glistened in his white hair as the wind stirred it. Up from the dark, undeniable below came the crying of fell voices, and the howling of many wolves. Unexpectedly a shadow, like the form of superb wings, exceeded across the moon. The Guru lifted his fingers and a mild ashed from the personnel that he wielded. A mighty eagle swept down and bore him away. The voices wailed and the wolves yammered. There was a noise like a robust wind blowing, and on it turned into borne the sound of hoofs, galloping, galloping, galloping from the east. Black riders, concept Frodo as he awoke, with the sound of the hoofs nonetheless echoing in his mind. He questioned if he could ever again have the courage to leave the safety of these stone partitions. He lay motionless, nevertheless listening, however all became now silent, and at last he became and fell asleep again. Or wandered into some different unremembered dream. At his facet Pippin lay dreaming pleasantly, however a alternate came over his dreams and he became and groaned. All at once he woke, or idea he had waked, and yet still heard in the darkness the sound that had disturbed his dream, tip-tap, squeak, the noise turned into like branches fretting in the wind, twig-enders scraping wall and window. Creak, creak, creak. He puzzled if there have been willow bushes near the residence, and then all of a sudden he had a dreadful feeling that he turned into not an irregular house at all, however within the willow, and listening to that terrible dry creaking voice laughing at him once more. He sat up, and felt the soft pillows yield to his palms, and he lay down once more. Relieved. He regarded to pay attention the echo of phrases in his ears, worry not anything. Have peace till the morning. Heed no nightly noises. Then he went to sleep again. It became the sound of water that Mary heard falling into his quiet sleep, water streaming down lightly, and then spreading, spreading irresistibly all round the residence into a darkish shoreless pool. It gurgled underneath the walls, and become rising slowly but virtually. I shall be drowned, he notion. It'll end its way in, after which I shall drown. He felt that he changed into lying in a tender slimy bathroom, and arising he set his foot at the corner of a cold difficult agstone. Then he remembered where he turned into and lay down once more. He regarded to pay attention or take into account listening to not anything passes doors or windows save moonlight and starlight and the wind off the hill pinnacle. A touch breath of candy air moved the curtain. He breathed deep and fell asleep again. As far as he could do not forget, Sam slept through the night time in deep content, if logs are contented. They wakened, all four at once, within the morning light. Tom changed into moving approximately the room whistling like a starling. While he heard them stir he clapped his fingers, and cried, Good day! Come merry dole! Derry! Dole! My hearties! He returned the yellow curtains, and the hobbits noticed that these had blanketed the home windows, at either stop of the room, one searching east and the alternative searching west. They leapt up refreshed. Frodo ran to the Jap window, and determined himself looking into a kitchen lawn grey with dew. He had too anticipated to see turf right up to the partitions, turf all pocked with hoof prints. Without a doubt his view became screened via a tall line of beans on poles, however above and a ways beyond them the grey pinnacle of the hill loomed up towards the dawn. It changed into a pale morning, in the east, behind. Long clouds like strains of soiled wool stained red at the edges, lay glimmering deeps of yellow. The sky stated rain to return, but the light was broadening fast, and the pink hours on the beans started out to glow against the wet inexperienced leaves. Pippin appeared out of the western window, down into a pool of mist. The forest became hidden beneath a fog. It changed into like looking down onto a sloping cloud roof from above. There was a fold or channel, wherein the mist become broken into many plumes and billows, the valley of the Withywindle. The movement ran down the hill at the left and vanished into the white shadows. Near to hand became a o'er garden. An clipped hedge silver-netted, and past that grey-shaven grass, faded with dewdrops. There has been no willow tree to be visible. Exact morning, merry pals! Cried Tom, commencing the Japanese window wide. A fab arrowed in, it had a wet smell. Solar gain tea show her face a great deal today. I'm questioning I have been taking walks extensive, leaping at the hilltops, in view that the grey dawn started out, nosing wind and climate, wet grass underfoot, wet sky above me. I wakened Goldberry, singing below window, however not wakes hobbit people inside the early morning. Inside the night-time little people awaken inside the darkness, and sleep after light has come. Ring-a-ding-dillo. Wake now, my merry friends. Forget about the nightly noises. Ring-a-ding-dillo-dell. Derry-dell, my hearties. In case you come soon you'll end breakfast on the table. In case you come past due, you'll get grass and rain water. Pointless to mention now not that Tom's danger sounded very extreme. The hobbits got here quickly, and left the desk late and best when it became starting to appearance alternatively empty. Neither Tom nor Goldberry were there. Tom might be heard approximately the house, clattering within the kitchen, and up and down the steps, and making a song here and there outside. The room looked westward over the mist-clouded valley, and the window became open. Water dripped down from the thatched eaves above. Before that they had nished breakfast the clouds had joined into an unbroken roof, and a straight grey rain got here softly and gradually down. In the back of its deep curtain the woodland became absolutely veiled. As they regarded out of the window there got here falling gently as if it become owing down the rain out of the sky, the clean voice of Goldberry singing up above them. They may pay attention few words, but it regarded undeniable to them that the track became a rain track, as sweet as showers on dry hills, that instructed the tale of a river from the spring in the highlands to the ocean a long way beneath. The hobbits listened with pleasure, and Frodo turned into glad in his coronary heart, and blessed the kindly climate, because it delayed them from departing. The concept of going had been heavy upon him from the instant he awakened, however he guessed now that they might no longer go in addition that day. The higher wind settled within the west and deeper and wetter clouds rolled up to spill their laden rain at the naked heads of the downs. Not anything could be visible all spherical the house but falling water. Frodo stood near the open door and watched the white chalky root turn into a bit river of milk and pass effervescent away down into the valley. Tom Bombadil came trotting round the corner of the residence, waving his arms as though he become heading off the rain, and indeed while he sprang over the edge he seemed pretty dry, besides for his boots. These he took off and placed in the chimney corner. Then he sat within the largest chair and referred to as the hobbits to acquire spherical him. This is Goldberry's washing day, he said, and her autumn cleaning. Too wet for hobbit people, allow them to relaxation even as they're able. It's an amazing day for long memories, for questions and for answers, so Tom We'll start the talking." He then instructed them many brilliant memories, from time to time half of as if speak me to himself, now and again looking at them unexpectedly with a vibrant blue eye underneath his deep brows. Often his voice would flip to song, and he would get out of his chair and dance about. He instructed them stories of bees and owls, the approaches of timber, and the odd creatures of the forest, approximately the evil matters and properly things, matters friendly and matters unfriendly, merciless matters and kind things, and secrets hidden underneath brambles. As they listened, they commenced to recognize the lives of the forest, aside from themselves, certainly to feel themselves as the strangers, wherein all other matters have been at home. Shifting constantly in and out of his communicate become vintage man Willow, and Frodo discovered now sufficient to content material him, indeed greater than sufficient, for it changed into no longer comfy lore. Tom's words laid naked the hearts of trees and their mind, which have been frequently dark and strange, and led with a hatred of factors that cross unfastened upon the earth, gnawing, biting, breaking, hacking, burning, destroyers and usurpers. It was now not known as the old wooded area without reason, for it became certainly historical, a survivor of great forgotten woods, and in it there lived yet, getting older no quicker than the hills, the fathers of timber, remembering times after they were lords. They endless years had led them with pride and rooted understanding, and with malice. But none have been more risky than the super Willow. His heart became rotten, however his power was green, and he become foxy, and a master of wines, and his track and idea ran via the woods on each sides of the river. His grey thirsty spirit drew energy out of the earth and spread like any root threads inside the ground, and invisible twigengers in the air, until it had below its dominion nearly all the bushes of the wooded area from the hedge to the downs. Tom's communicate left the woods and went jumping up the young stream, over bubbling waterfalls, over pebbles and worn rocks, and among small hours in close grass and moist crannies, wandering it, closing up onto the downs. They heard of the wonderful barrows, and the inexperienced mounds, and the stone rings upon the hills and inside the hollows some of the hills. Sheep were bleating in O.K. Green walls and white partitions rose. There have been fortresses at the heights. Kings of little kingdoms fought together, and the young sun shone like on the crimson steel in their new and greedy swords. There has been victory and defeat, and towers fell, fortresses were burned, and M's went up into the sky. Gold turned into piled on the biers of dead kings and queens, and mountains protected them, and the stone doors had been shut, and the grass grew over all. Sheep walked for a while biting the grass, however soon the hills were empty once more. A shadow got here out of darkish places some distance away, and the bones were stirred in the mounds. Barrow-wights walked in the hollow places with a clink of earrings on cold engers, and gold chains in the wind. Stone jewelry grinned out of the ground like damaged teeth. Inside the moonlight, the hobbits shuddered. Even in the Shire the rumour of the Barrow-wights of the Barrow Downs past the forest have been heard. However, it turned into not a tale that any hobbit favoured to concentrate to, even by way of a at ease reside some distance away. These four now unexpectedly remembered what the joy of this residence had pushed from their minds. The house of Tom Bombadil nestled under the very shoulder of these dreaded hills. They lost the thread of his tale and shifted uneasily, looking aside at one another. When they stuck his phrases again they determined that he had now wandered into bizarre areas past their reminiscence and past their waking idea, into times whilst the arena turned into wider, and the seas owed instantly to the western shore, and still on and lower back Tom went, making a song out into historic starlight, while handiest the elf sires have been awake. Then he stopped, and that they noticed that he nodded as if he was falling asleep. The hobbits sat still earlier than him, enchanted, and it seemed as if, underneath the spell of his phrases, the wind had gone, and the clouds had dried up, and the day have been withdrawn, and darkness had come from east and west, and all the sky changed into LED, with the mild of white stars. Whether the morning and night of in the future or of many days had exceeded Frodo could not inform. He did no longer experience both hungry or tired, best LED with wonder. The celebs shone through the window, and the silence of the heavens appeared to be round him. He spoke, at final out of his surprise and a surprising fear of that silence. "Who are you?" grasp he requested. "At what?" stated Tom sitting up, and his eyes glinting in the gloom. "Don't you recognize my call, but that's the most effective solution. Inform me, who are you?" "Alone, yourself and nameless, but you are younger and I'm old. Eldest, that's what I'm. Mark my words, my pals." Tom became here before the river and the timber. Tom remembers the RST raindrop and the RST acorn. He made paths before the large human beings, and saw the little human beings arriving. He become here before the kings and the graves and the barrow whites. Whilst the elves surpassed westward, Tom become right here already, before the seas were bent. He knew the darkish underneath the stars while it became fearless earlier than the Dark Lord came. From out of doors, a shadow regarded to skip via the window, and the hobbits glanced rapidly via the panes. After they became again, Goldberry stood within the door behind, framed and mild. She held a candle, protective its aim from the draught together with her hand, and the mild ode through it, like daylight through a white shell. "The rain has ended," she stated, "and new waters are going for walks downhill. Underneath the celebs allow us to now snigger and be happy. And let us have food and drinks," cried Tom. "Long memories are thirsty, and lengthy listening's hungry paintings, morning, noon, and night." With that he jumped out of his chair, and with a certain took a candle from the chimney shelf and lit it in the aim that Goldberry held. Then he danced about the desk. All at once he hopped via the door and disappeared. Speedy he back, bearing a massive and laden tray. Then Tom and Goldberry set the desk, and the hobbits sat half of in wonder and half in laughter, so truthful changed into the grace of Goldberry and so merry and odd the caperings of Tom. But in some style they seemed to weave a unmarried dance, neither hindering the opposite, in and out of the room, and spherical approximately the table, and with incredible speed food and vessels and lights were set in order. The boards blazed with candles, white and yellow. Tom bowed to his guests. "Supper is prepared," said Goldberry, and now the hobbits saw that she was clothed all in silver with a white girdle, and her shoes had been like she's mail, but Tom became all in easy blue, blue as rain-washed forget-me-nots, and he had green stockings. It became a supper even higher than earlier then. The hobbits under the spell of Tom's phrases may have ignored one meal or many, but whilst the food become before them it appeared at least a week since they'd eaten, and they did no longer sing or even speak a good deal for some time, and paid close interest to enterprise. But after a time their hearts and spirits rose excessive once more, and their voices rang out in mirth and laughter. Once they had eaten, Goldberry sang many songs for them, songs that started merrily in the hills and fell softly down into silence, and in the silences they saw in their minds pools and waters wider than any that they had recognized, and searching into them they saw the sky under them and the celebs like jewels in the depths. Then yet again she kneaded them each appropriate night and left them with the aid of the reside. But Tom now appeared wide awake and plied them with questions. He appeared already to realize much approximately them and all their households, and indeed to recognize a good deal of all the records and doings of the Shire down from days hardly ever remembered the various hobbits themselves. It not amazed them, but he made no secret that he owed his latest understanding largely to Farmer Maggot, whom he seemed to regard as someone of greater importance than they had imagined. There's earth beneath his antique feet, and clay on his engers, information in his bones, and both his eyes are open, said Tom. It became additionally clear that Tom had dealings with the elves, and it appeared that in some fashion, news had reached him from Gilder concerning the fate of Frodo. Indeed, so much did Tom recognize, and so cunning became his wondering, that Frodo found himself telling him extra about Bilbo and his very own hopes and fears than he had told earlier than even to Gandalf. Tom wagged his head up and down, and there has been a glint in his eyes while he heard of the riders. "Show me the treasured ring," he stated abruptly inside the midst of the story, and Frodo, to his own astonishment, drew out the chain from his pocket, and unfastening the ring exceeded it without delay to Tom. It appeared to develop larger as it lay for a second on his big brown-skinned hand. Then he put it to his eye and laughed. For a second the hobbits had a imaginative and prescient, both comical and alarming, of his vivid blue eye glowing via a circle of gold. Then Tom put the ring round the stop of his little enger and held it as much as the candle light. For a moment the hobbits observed not anything bizarre about this. Then they gasped. There has been no sign of Tom disappearing. Tom laughed once more, after which he spun the ring in the air and it vanished with a ash. Frodo gave a cry and Tom leaned ahead and passed it again to him with a smile. Frodo checked out it intently, and instead suspiciously like person who has lent a trinket to a juggler. It became the same ring, or regarded the equal and weighed the identical, for that ring had continually regarded to Frodo to weigh strangely heavy within the hand. However, something triggered him to ensure. He changed into perhaps a tree, irritated with Tom for seeming to make so mild of what even Gandalf notions so perilously critical. He waited for an opportunity, when the speak changed into going again, and Tom turned into telling an absurd tale approximately badgers and their queer approaches. Then he slipped the ring on. Merry turned closer to him to say something and gave a begin, and checked an exclamation. Frodo changed into delighted in a way, it turned into his very own ring all right, for Merry was staring blankly at his chair, and glaringly couldn't see him. He got up and crept quietly far away from the reside towards the outer door. "Hi there!" cried Tom, glancing in the direction of him with a maximum seeing appearance in his shining eyes. "What's up? Come Frodo, there! In which be you? Going old Tom Bombadil's now not as blind as that yet. Take off your golden ring. Your hand's more truthful without it. Come lower back. Go away. Your sport and take a seat down beside me. We must talk a while greater, and reflect on consideration on the morning. Tom should educate the right avenue, and preserve your toes from wandering. Frodo laughed, trying to sense thrilled, and starting up the hoop he got here and sat down again. Tom now instructed them that he reckoned the solar would shine the next day, and it would be a satisfied morning, and starting off could be hopeful. However, they could do properly to start early, for climate in the Usava was a aspect that even Tom could not be sure of for lengthy, and it would exchange occasionally quicker than he could change his jacket. "I'm no climate master," stated he. Neither is aught that is going on legs. Through his recommendation they decided to make nearly due north from his house, over the western and decrease slopes of the downs. They could hope in that manner to strike the east road in a day's adventure, and avoid the barrows. He advised them not to be afraid, however, to mind their own commercial enterprise. "Keep to the inexperienced grass. Don't you move a meddling with vintage stone, or bloodless whites, or prying of their houses, unless you be robust people, with hearts that never falter." He said this more than as soon as, and he advised them to pass barrows by means of at the west side, if they chanced to stray near one. Then he taught them a rhyme to sing, in the event that they have to through sick luck fall into any danger or difficulty day after today. Ho! Tom Bombadil, Tom Bombadillo. Via water, timber, and hill, by way of the reed and willow, by means of sun and moon, hearken now and listen us. Come, Tom Bombadil, for our need is near us. Once they had sung this all together after him, he clapped them every at the shoulder with a musing, and taking candles led them returned to their bedroom.